Okay, well, I'm really pleased to welcome you to this evening's reading. Many of us have been here for the whole afternoon, have enjoyed various provocative, in many different ways, talks. But tonight we've got the pleasures of Bernadine Evaristo and Lawrence Scott coming to read to us. And we'll begin with Bernadine, who I'll introduce to you now. She's the author of 7 books. Her latest, Mr. Loverman, was published by Penguin in August of this year. Her writing, as many of you may know, refuses to be contained by the categories we often use to make sense of literature. So she mixes prose and verse, fiction and history. She challenges the myths of Afro-diasporic identities, and she boldly rewrites the stories that we tell ourselves about the world, and also revising her own stories, as when she revised and expanded Lara for the 2009 publication. I first personally encountered Bernadine during my PhD research on Black British women's theatre. She studied community theatre arts at Rose Bruford College of Speech and Drama in the early 80s. I probably shouldn't say that, should I? And she co-founded the first Black women's theatre company in Britain. And she was warm and welcoming and extremely generous, not only with opening her home to me, but dusting off various boxes of archival materials that really were a pleasure to come across for the first time, I guess since you'd written them, and even then, her writing was characterised by its experimentation, its innovation, its meticulous attention to detail. Since then, she's earned a PhD in creative writing from Goldsmiths, University of London, and for the last 2 years she's been a reader in creative writing at Brunel University in London. Bernadine says on her website that writing is an adventure, a journey into the unknown. And so I'm looking forward to our travels this evening. And I should say, in fact, I was so absorbed in thinking about her writing that I almost forgot to get off my train this morning and went on an unexpected journey to Swansea. So I look forward to some unexpected destinations this evening.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here at this conference, very special conference, I think. I'm going to read from Mr. Loverman, which is my new novel. Story of a man who's Caribbean. He's from Antigua. He's 74 years old. He's a father and a husband and a grandfather, and he's also closet homosexual. And he's lived in London for 50 years, and he's been lovers with his great childhood friend Morris for 60 years. So he's had this very long-term loving relationship, plus other dalliances, and he's married. His wife is deeply religious Pentecostal wife, and she doesn't know what he gets up to. So the novel is about the end of his marriage and his decision to move in with Morris, and we don't know whether he will or not at the beginning of the book. And the other thing to say about him is I wanted to write about a character from the so-called Windrush generation, which he is, at the tail end of it, who doesn't fit any of the stereotypes that we expect from that generation. So he's a character he's had a very successful life in Britain. He's a rich landlord. So he's worked in Fords for 40 years, but he's also a rich landlord. He's bought property in Hackney, which some of you might know, in Stoke Newington, when it was going cheap, and he's never sold. So he's actually got these huge investments. And he's also a very positive thinker. He's a very charismatic character, and he's a bit of a raver, and he is also self-taught. So he also considers himself educated. So he's the main storyteller of this novel, but then his narrative is spliced with sections from his wife, Carmel, and it looks at her life being married to this man, not knowing he's gay, and it starts with 1960. So her sections, there are 6 sections, starting in 1960 at the eve of her marriage, and then spliced at various junctions in the book where we get to hear about her life over the decades. So 1960, 1970, 1980, and so on and so forth. So she's like her narrative is sort of counter-narrative to his. So I'll read from the beginning of the book, which seems to make sense. And he's from Antigua, so I have to read it in a slight Antiguan accent. But I don't know if there's anyone here from Antigua. No, I don't think so. It's good. Morris, it's called The Art of Marriage, Saturday, 1st of May, 2010. Morris is suffering from that affliction known as teetotalism. Oh, yes, not another drop of drink is going past his lips before he leaves this earth in a wooden box, he said just now when we was in the dance hall, mighty sparrow blasting Barrack the Magnificent out of the sound system. Last time it happened was when he decided to become vegetarian, which was rather amusing, as that fella has spent the whole of his life stuffing his face with every part of an animal except its hair and teeth. Anyways, all of a sudden, Morris started throwing exotic words into the conversation, like soya, tofu, and corn, and asking me how I would feel if someone chopped off my leg and cooked it for supper. I didn't even deign to reply. Apparently, he'd watched one of those documentaries about battery chickens being injected with growth hormones, and thereby deduced he was going to turn into a woman, grow moobies and the like. Yes, Morris, I said, but after 70-something years eating chicken, I notice you still don't need no bra. So tell me, how you worked that one out? Get this now. Within the month, I found myself walking past Smoky Joe's fried chicken joint on Kingsland High Street, when who did I see inside, tearing into a piece of chicken, eyes disappearing into the back of his head in the throes of ecstasy, like he was at an ancient Greek bacchanalia being fed from a platter of juicy golden chicken thighs by a nubile Adonis. The look on his face when I burst in with all of that and caught him with all of that grease running down his chin. Laugh? Yes, Morris, me bust myself laughing. So there we was in the dance hall, amid all of those sweaty, horny youngsters, relatively speaking, swivelling their hips effortlessly, and there was I trying to move my hips in a similar hula hoop fashion, except these days it feels more like opening a rusty tin of soup with an old-fashioned tin opener. I'm trying to bend my knees without showing any pain on my face and without accidentally going too far down, because I know I won't be able to get up again, while also trying to concentrate on what Morris is shouting in my ear. I mean it this time, Barry. I can't deal with all of this intoxication no more. My memory getting so bad, I think Tuesday is Thursday, the bedroom is the bathroom, and I call my elder son by my younger son name. You know what, Barry? I go and start reading some of that Shakespeare you love so much and doing crossword. What is more, I going to join Jim on pensioner discount, so I can have sauna every day to keep my circulation pumping good. Because between you, me, and these four walls... Morris stopped and looked over his shoulder to make sure no one was eavesdropping. Right. Two old geezers talking about the trials and tribulations of being geriatric, and the whole room of gyrating youth wants to know about it. He said, I suddenly noticed last week, I have varicose vein. He whispered into my ear so close he spat into it, and I had to wipe it out with my finger. Morris, I say, varicose vein is what happened when you was old man. Get used to it. As for forgetfulness, likely you got early dementia, and nothing you can do about that except eat more oily fish. As for staying sober... Morris just stared at me in that wounded way that he really should have grown out of about 69 years ago. I worked out he must be in the throes of alcohol withdrawal symptoms. Not that I got direct experience of this withdrawal phenomenon, because I ain't never gone a day without the sweet sauce blessing my lips. Difference between me and Morris is that most days that is all I do. Wet my lips with a taster, a chaser, a little something to warm me up, a sip of Appleton rum, a swig of Red Stripe or Dragon Stout, mainly to support the intemperance industry over there on the islands. Call it an act of benevolence, really. Only on a Saturday night do I give in to my bacchanalianese tendencies. In Morris's case, he don't consume the drink consumes him. Pickled, that man is pickled. The ratio of alcohol to blood in him must be 90 to 10 a true. Not that he should worry. He's one of those pissheads who look good in it. Finally, he decided to lighten up and crack a smile. Nobody can be depressed around me for long. Yes, I am the great mood levitator. I am the human Valium. We're veterans now, I tell him. We have to adjust. What is more, we must believe that our best years are ahead of us, not behind us. Only way to deal with this non-stop train hurtling towards oblivion is to be positive. Is this not the age of positive thinking? You know what they say? Glass either half full or half empty. Let we make it half full. Do we have a deal, my man? I hold out my hand for a shake, but instead he gets the wrong end of the stick and starts acting like a teenager, attempting one of those hip-hop, fist-pump, finger-flick handshakes that we both get all wrong, and anybody looking will think we are a couple of pathetic old dudes trying to be cool. Morris, oh my dear Morris, what's I going to do with you? You have always been a warrior. Who is it who always tell you, Morris, take it off your chest and put it on mine? Now, look at you, that welterweight body of yours, self-same one that used to do the Morris shuffle around your opponents in the boxing ring to become junior boxing champ of Antigua in 1951, is still going mighty strong in spite of a piddling varicose vein or two. You're still the chap I used to know, still got impressive musculature on your arms, still got a stomach more concave than convex, still got no lines except those around your neck which nobody's will notice anyway except me. But Morris, there is one thing I does know for sure about you. Your heart and mind has always liked to travel on that sea-going vessel them a call Lady Booze. No way you go and jump ship for dry land at this late stage in life and end up marooned on a desert island called sobriety. This I know without a doubt, because I, Barrington Jedediah Walker, Esquire, have known you, Monsieur Maurice Courtney de la Rue, since we was both high-pitched, smooth-cheeked mischief-makers waiting for we balls to drop. I ain't complaining, though, because while Morris is planning on bettering himself, he chauffeurs me home in his Ford Fiesta, as I am too plastered to get behind the wheel of a car and negotiate the high roads and low roads of East London without getting arrested by the boys in blue. That's one thing I does miss, drinking, driving and getting away with it, as we all did in the 60s and 70s. No CCTV cameras silently ogling you with their cyclopean eyes 300 times a day as you go about your business in London town. Soon as I leave my door, I am watched. Big brother come into we lives and none of us objecting. I can't even pick a booger out of me own nose without it being filmed for posterity. Morris drives me up to my yard, number 100 Cazenhoff Road, Stoke Newington, waits to make sure I go in the right gate and don't collapse in the gutter, then drives off quietly in first gear with a cheery backhand wave. He should be coming in for some spiced cocoa and some old man's gentle comfort. Instead, my heart sinks because I'm going into the lion's den. This is the story of we lives, hellos and goodbyes. So he's now in the bedroom and he's crept into the bedroom where his wife is sleeping. First thing I do in the darkness is slide out the gold clip that holds the two tongues of my blue striped tie together. Only decent thing I got when I retired from Ford Motors in Dagenham. After 40 years at the coalface, me get a tie, me get a rubbish engraved plate, me get a watch that is more Timex than Rolex, and me get a clammy handshake and patronising speech from the managing director, Mr. Lardy Comeover, in the staff canteen. It is with tremendous sadness, Mr. Walker, that we say goodbye to an employee who has given us such dedicated service over such an extended period of time. Your presence on the factory floor has greatly endeared you to your colleagues. You are quite the joker, I hear, quite the anecdotalist, quite the raconteur. He paused to study me, like he wasn't so sure I understood words of 5 syllables, or ones that was a bit Frenchified, then added, "Oh, you know, one who regales others with stories." Oh, boy, I catch so much fire when people talk down to me like I'm some back-a-bush dumbass who don't understand the ins and outs of the Queen's English, like I wasn't educated at Antigua Grammar School, best one in the country, like all of my teachers didn't come from the colonial mothership, like this here little Englander can't speak the Queen's as well as any big Englander over there, I mean here. And so what if me and my people choose to mash up the Hinglish linguish whenever we feel like it, drop our prepositions with our panties, piss in the pot of correct syntax and spelling, and mangle our grammar at random? Is this not our post-modern, post-colonial prerogative? Anyways, when I arrived here on the good ship Immigrant, I brought with me a portmanteau of school certificates, and the only reason I didn't go to no university was because I didn't score highly enough to get the single government scholarship to a university in England. I've been taking evening classes since 1971 to make up for it. Sociology, psychology, archaeology, oleology, you name it. English literature, French language, naturellement. Don't even get me started on Mr. Shakespeare, Esquire, with whom I've been having the most satisfying cerebral relationship, Sirrah. I know my artology too. Miro, Monet, Manet, Man Ray, Matisse, Michelangelo, Murillo, Modigliani, Morandi, Munch, Moore and Mondrian, not to mention the rest of the alphabet. I even dragged Morris to that controversial sensation exhibition at the Royal Academy in 1997 to see Emin's slutty bed, or Philly's elephant dung, Hurst's pickled shark, and Quinn's bloody head. Morris scoffed, "I can do better than that." To which I replied, "It might be more concept than craft, Morris, but art would be boring if people still only painted buff male bodies with rock-hard buttocks, juicy lips, and dangling protuberances in the style of the Renaissance. Although, come to think of it, perhaps not." Morris's final word on the matter: "In that case, I'm going piss in a bucket and exhibit it as art with a capital A." Morris's problem is he don't like to go too deep. It's not that he's not capable, because that man is smarter than most. He's the one who got the scholarship to study maths at Hull University. But when he got there, he didn't like the code, didn't like the food, didn't like the course, didn't do the work, and when he was sent down at the end of his second year, didn't want to go home. I placed the tie clip inside the small bowl on the bedside table, the one with blue stalks painted on it a la Chinese porcelain of the Ming Dynasty period, I do believe. Its stem cup design with peony scrolls is certainly recognisable from my numerous expeditions to the Victoria and Albert Museum, to which I frog marched Morris. Only difference between this bowl and the original is that Carmel bought this one in Woolworths for 99p in 1987. I wriggle out of the sleeves of my shirt, bunch it up in my hands, and throw it into the corner by the window for Carmel to wash. It lands like an exhalation of breath. I like that. Derek Walcott, you're listening over there in St. Lucia? Me no care if you did get the Nobel Prize for poetry. You better watch out, because Barrington Walker's gone steal the linguistic march on you, fella. In spite of my efforts, Carmel's deep-sea breathing stops, and she comes up for air with a kind of watery spluttering, as if she's just stopped herself from drowning, unfortunately. Wifey rolls over and turns on the flowery bedside lamp with a click that sounds like the cocking of a trigger. I go and get a right reprimandation. It is morning time already, Barrington. She is using the 3-syllable version of my name. You know how time does pass, dear? Statement, not a question. Does it? Threat, not a question. Why don't you go back to sleep, dear? Instruction, not a question. Oh, I'll have plenty of time to sleep when the good Lord comes for me, and that won't be long now, I am sure. Emotional blackmail, pure and simple. In which case, I hope he comes for me before he comes for you, dear. A lie, pure and simple. Unless that one with horns and a pitchfork catch you first. I try and concentrate on the job in hand, but when I sneak a glance at Carmel, I see she getting ready to invade Poland. I take off my 3 rings and pop them into the bowl. My ruby beauty is like a thimbleful of blood that's been poured into an oval mould of gold. I bought it for myself when my first rental property went into profit. The golden truck tyre was given to me by that German construction worker in 1977. Bit of a knuckle duster, he was. Rough trade. My favourite is a coiled serpent with diamond scales and glinting sapphire eyes, with its head poised, ready to take a bite of the apple. As for my wedding ring, only a pair of metal cutters could get it off of my fingers. Many times I have resisted a trip to the hardware store. Bringing the stink of cigars into my bedroom again. I sorry. And that rank rum nastiness. I sorry. When you go and mend your ways. I sorry. You could have called at least. I know, I am sorry. I told you to get a mobile phone years ago. Am I truly bonkers? A mobile phone so the old girl can track me down any time of day or night? Far as she's concerned, her husband is a womanizer, out sowing his seed with all of those imaginary hyacinths, Merediths and daffodils. On what evidence? Alien perfume? Lipstick on my collar? Ladies' panties in my jacket pocket? I can honestly say to my wife, dear, I ain't never slept with another woman. She chooses not to believe me. So I'm just going to give you a taste of one of Carmel's sections. It's the first section. It's 1960. It's her wedding night. And she's outside on the veranda on a swing. Husband's inside sleeping. And so this is a sense of this very different sort of tone and style and everything. Carmel, nobody can treat you like a child no more. Now you're married. Not even Pappy, who lost his rights over you once your husband inherited them. You're going to be a good, deserving wife too, Carmel, isn't it? You've been studying the home economics manual from your school days in preparation, which says, When your husband gets back from work, home will be a haven of rest and order. You go and touch up your makeup and put a ribbon in your hair and have dinner ready in the oven. And if he's late and it gets burnt, you're not going to start hectoring him like some of those low-class, bad-mouthed women out there who can't keep man and end up lonely or hag. No, you're going to ask him questions about his day in a soft and soothing voice and listen to his news and complaints with a pleasant smile. You're not going to blow it like Mummy, who should have kept her lip buttoned instead of back-chatting Pappy. Not that you exonerate his badness. And though you feel sorry for her, Mummy tests the patience of a saint, as Pappy keeps telling her. No, you had planned to catch man. And as soon as Barry started working for Pappy, you was ecstatic. Started sneaking him the looks you'd been practicing in the mirror, waiting for the right boy to come along. And then, soon as he saw you, you turn away with an enigmatic smile. It worked, because he started to escort you to school, standing at the end of the drive in his khaki trousers. Carmel, you look simply gorgeous and simply marvellous if it wasn't for that simply ginormous purple pimple at the end of your nose, or those two camel eyes of yours that are so cross the only thing they can see is each other. Or he'd grab your satchel and throw it in a wide, slow-motion arc into a sun-hazy field of damp tomato and cucumber plants, forcing you to chase him to get it, or he'd only throw it again. And there was that one time when you was genuinely annoyed with his antics, because this wasn't exactly your idea of a romantic courtship, and you tossed your head at him and shouted, "Go sling your hook, boy." And he just stood there, standing there, slowly, quietly, in the rising morning heat, his sandals all dusty, sweaty patches spreading under his arms, the sun glinting on him. And when he spoke in a tone you had not, and then he spoke in a tone you had not heard before. "Carmel," he said, sniffing up his lips and nose like you stank as bad as the manure out there. "Carmel, I know you ain't no sourpuss, really." And even though tears filled up your eyes and you tried to hold them back, you couldn't. "But I know you a sweet girl deep down inside. You see, Carmel, I am an archaeologist of the human character, and I hereby declare I go help you excavate all of your sweetness." Sweet girl became his pet name for you, and once you knew that you were sweet deep down inside, you couldn't backchat him no more. You had to be sweet all of the time, or you'd disappoint him. What you got, sweet girl? You got the cream of the crop, that's what. No man on this island more better looking or got a more attractive personality than your husband. You swear it. Clever too, like you used to be. At Antigua Girls High, you was top girl in your class for Latin and French, second for English and history, fourth in classical civilizations, fifth in the ancient Greek language, until you met Barry and realized he was clever enough for both of you. Everybody knows you can't be too clever or you won't catch man. So.